Tell me about homelessness in San Francisco.
Sucks. We get harassed constantly by the cops and by DPW workers, like almost on a daily basis.
You're gonna arrest me for going to some place for a misdemeanor, for nothing, because I'm homeless?
San Francisco is a glaring contradiction. While Silicon Valley thrives on breakthrough technology and incredible wealth, its streets are filled with homeless people, ragged tents, and empty souls struggling to survive.
So how are you surviving?
So, I get about $900 a month, which is definitely not enough to live in San Francisco.
This is not just a story of beauty and decline, it is also the heartbreaking reality of a city that seems to have forgotten its most vulnerable. What does it mean to shape the future when so many are left in the dark? Let's explore the core of this paradox, where progress and poverty intersect. According to the latest point-in-time PIT survey from January 2024, homelessness in San Francisco has increased by 7% since 2022. That's 8,323 people living on the streets, in shelters, or in temporary housing. More than half of them, 4,355 individuals, are living without a home, with only the open sky above them. The others are in shelters, but even that number is steadily decreasing. Despite billions of dollars being pumped into this crisis, the problem continues to grow and is becoming harder and harder to ignore. Here's something that should really make you stop and think. The number of families experiencing homelessness has surged by 94%, from 205 to 437 households in just a few short years. These aren't just cold statistics. These are real people. Their parents, children, veterans, and seniors, all struggling to find any semblance of stability in a city where the wealthy continue to thrive and the most vulnerable are left behind. Just pause for a moment and consider this. In one of the wealthiest cities in the country, entire families are being pushed out onto the streets, forced to fight for survival with no resources to support them. And then, there are the veterans, the men and women who served this country, now homeless and grappling with mental health issues and addiction, often forgotten by the very system they once protected. What happens when those who risked everything for our nation are forced to live in such dire conditions? What does it say about us as a society when children and seniors struggle to survive day in and day out with no safety net in sight? These are not mere statistics that can be brushed aside. They are a stark reminder that homelessness is not just about a lack of shelter. It's a failure of a system that is supposed to protect and support our most vulnerable citizens. So, let me ask you, how long can we continue to turn a blind eye? How long will it take us to face this painful reality and take real action? The time for ignoring this crisis is over. San Francisco's homelessness crisis didn't suddenly appear. It's been decades in the making. It's a product of long-standing economic inequality, the sky-high cost of living, and years of poor policy decisions. In the 1980s, the roots of homelessness were planted as affordable housing options steadily disappeared, and issues like mental health and addiction began to rise. But it wasn't until the 2010s, when housing prices in San Francisco shot past $1.4 million, that the crisis truly exploded. By 2025, San Francisco is set to have the highest average home prices in the nation. How can anyone, especially those with modest incomes, afford to live here when the cost of buying or renting a home has become so out of reach? This isn't just about housing. It's about a deeper, systemic problem where the rich keep getting richer, while the most vulnerable among us are pushed further and further to the edge.
What's homelessness like in San Francisco?
I'm basically homeless. Rents in different places got too high, so I couldn't afford it.
Then came the COVID-19 pandemic, which exacerbated the situation. Many people who were already struggling fell deeper into poverty and unemployment. The economic fallout left more individuals and families without a safety net, intensifying the already dire situation. But even as the crisis reached new heights, the responses from the city, while well-meaning, have failed to address the root causes. One such approach, the Housing First policy, prioritizes putting people in homes before addressing addiction and mental health issues, but it has drawn criticism for not tackling the core reasons why people end up on the streets in the first place. Despite San Francisco spending over $1.1 billion annually on homelessness services, much of that money is being spent without proper oversight or clear results. So the question remains, does pouring money into the problem really help? Or are we simply covering up the cracks without getting to the heart of the issue? As we look at the growing number of people affected by homelessness, we have to ask, is this the best we can do? Or is it time for a more effective, comprehensive approach? Behind the cold statistics lie the real human stories of struggle and survival. More than 70% of the homeless population in San Francisco grapple with mental health issues or addiction. It's not just about living without a roof over their heads. It's about the daily fight with internal battles that are often invisible to the public eye. Over half of those living on the streets are struggling with drug addiction, with fentanyl and other opioids being a major driver of the crisis. Many of them are not only dealing with substance abuse, but also facing mental health challenges, from severe depression to PTSD, that make survival even harder. Yet, the treatment they desperately need is not being provided at scale. The mental health care and addiction treatment necessary to break the cycle of homelessness are in short supply, leaving people to fend for themselves in the most inhumane of conditions. As the opioid epidemic continues to sweep across the nation, it has left a devastating mark on San Francisco, with an increasing number of individuals pushed out into the streets as they struggle with addiction. This isn't just a homeless issue, it's part of a much larger public health crisis that's ravaging communities across the country. However, addiction isn't the sole cause. Mental illness is equally pervasive. Many people living on the streets are battling untreated psychological conditions. Some of them were once thriving members of society, but without the support or proper treatment, they found themselves falling into despair. San Francisco's mental health system is overwhelmed and underfunded, leaving many of the city's most vulnerable people to slip through the cracks. And without help, they end up back on the streets, continuing the endless cycle of homelessness. So, what happens when someone fighting addiction or mental illness is left to survive on the streets, alone and unsupported? The cycle continues. The pain worsens, and the crisis deepens. As a society, what are we doing to tackle the root causes of homelessness? Is it enough to simply provide shelter, or should we be addressing the systemic issues of addiction and mental health care? The truth is, we've only begun to understand the magnitude of the problem, and unless we act comprehensively, it will only continue to grow. San Francisco has not stood idly by in its efforts to combat homelessness. Despite the overwhelming challenges, the city has launched several initiatives aimed at finding solutions. One of the most significant is the Home by the Bay program, which focuses on creating more equitable housing options for all people, not just the wealthy. The initiative works to increase shelter capacity and provide permanent housing for thousands of individuals. Its goal is to offer housing solutions to more than 8,000 people annually while addressing the growing need for shelter. Another key approach is the rapid rehousing strategy, which prioritizes moving people from temporary shelters into permanent homes with supportive services. While this initiative has shown some success in addressing the immediate shelter crisis, it doesn't fully tackle the root causes, such as addiction, mental health issues, and the severe shortage of affordable housing that are at the heart of the problem. Critics argue that without addressing these underlying issues, the cycle of homelessness will continue. Under the leadership of Mayor Daniel Lurie, the city has also committed to expanding outreach programs and increasing services for the homeless population. One notable initiative is the James Baldwin Place, which provides sober living spaces for those struggling with addiction. San Francisco is also working on eliminating tent encampments, particularly in areas like Tenderloin and 6th Street, by offering safer and more permanent housing solutions. However, the success of these programs is still uncertain, especially given the inconsistent funding for homelessness services. The reliance on temporary measures, like clearing camps without long-term housing solutions, raises concerns about the effectiveness of these efforts. On a broader level, California's state-level initiatives such as the Home Key program are helping to address homelessness by purchasing and converting hotels into affordable housing units. While this effort is an important step forward, the reality is that these programs are reaching only a fraction of the homeless population. The growing number of people living without stable housing makes it clear that the solutions being implemented are still insufficient to meet the scale of the crisis. Nonprofit organizations have also played a crucial role in helping the homeless. The Human Services Agency, HSH, has been providing shelter, food, and health care, while organizations like Episcopal Community Services, ECS, offer housing and job training. Yet, with demand for services so high, these organizations are stretched thin, and the gap between need and available services continues to widen. The growing demand for assistance underscores the urgency of tackling the homelessness crisis head-on. Despite all the efforts being made, significant challenges persist in San Francisco's fight against homelessness. One of the biggest hurdles is the astronomical cost of providing services. San Francisco spends about $100,000 per person each year on homelessness services, but the results remain troubling. Only 13% of individuals who receive support successfully transition into permanent housing. This glaring inefficiency raises serious questions about how the funds are being allocated and whether the current strategies are truly effective. The city's approach of clearing out tent encampments, which is often presented as a solution, has also sparked concerns. These sweeps may appear to show progress, but in reality, they simply relocate the problem to another area, such as parks or the airport, without addressing the root causes of homelessness. People are pushed from one place to another, creating a sense of instability and chaos in their already fragile lives. The limited resources they had are stripped away as they are moved, further exacerbating their already dire situation. Another major issue is the lack of sufficient mental health and addiction treatment facilities. Research from UCSF shows that 60% of the homeless population in San Francisco struggles with mental illness or substance abuse. However, only about a third of these individuals receive the treatment they need. This means that even when they are housed, many are not getting the help they need to overcome the underlying issues that led to their homelessness in the first place. Without addressing these root causes, any solution will be temporary, and the cycle of homelessness will continue. The shortage of affordable housing is another significant roadblock. San Francisco's real estate market is one of the most expensive in the country, and despite ongoing efforts to build more affordable housing, the demand far exceeds the supply. By 2025, the average home price in San Francisco is expected to reach $1.4 million. This makes it virtually impossible for people with limited incomes to afford to live in the city. The gap between the rich and the poor is widening, with the wealthy thriving while those on the margins are left to fend for themselves. In a city where housing prices keep soaring, the basic right to a home is quickly slipping away from many. The solution to homelessness cannot be found without tackling the issue of affordable housing head-on. As I reflect on the homelessness crisis in San Francisco, it's hard to ignore the profound sense of helplessness that so many people must feel. But more than that, I feel a sense of frustration because this crisis is so avoidable. We live in one of the richest, most advanced nations in the world, yet we continue to fail our most vulnerable citizens. The human cost of homelessness is incalculable. It's not just about the lack of shelter, it's about the devastating impact it has on an individual's dignity, mental health, and future. To be homeless is to live in constant fear and uncertainty. It is to lose your sense of self-worth, to be seen as invisible by society. We all deserve a safe, stable home. Why should that be a privilege, not a right? Why are we allowing this to happen year after year? I believe the time for half measures is over. We cannot continue to throw money at a problem without addressing the root causes. We need comprehensive mental health and addiction treatment services, more affordable housing, and better support for people trying to rebuild their lives. We need to rethink our approach to homelessness, moving beyond temporary fixes like sweeps and shelters to permanent solutions that truly address the systemic issues that create and perpetuate homelessness in the first place. The solution to homelessness is not just about creating more beds or shelters. It's about creating an environment where everyone has access to the same opportunities, where housing is not a luxury, and where those struggling with addiction or mental illness are treated with compassion and given the care they need. We need a bold, compassionate approach, not a temporary one. And we need to act now before the crisis grows even further. The homelessness crisis in San Francisco is not just a problem for the city, it's a national issue that demands our attention. It's easy to ignore, but the reality is, we can no longer turn a blind eye. As the homeless population continues to grow, so does the urgency to find real, lasting solutions. While the efforts from the city, state, and nonprofits are worthy of recognition, they fall short of addressing the root causes and providing the long-term support needed. The time has come for comprehensive, systemic change. We all have a role to play, not just in helping those who are homeless, but in ensuring that no one else has to face the harsh reality of living without a home. What will we do to change this?